The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the Earth defense ship Aurora as Captain Deho. Kim stared at the incoming transmission. His hands shook as he watched the final moments of New Sol Colony on Proxima Centauri. The alien ships moved like shadows against the stars, their hulls darker than the void between worlds. "Sir, we're losing the signal," reported communications officer Hansel Park, his young face pale in the monitor's glow. The transmission from the colony showed massive ships descending through the atmosphere like falling moons. Their weapons fired beams of pure white light that turned buildings into vapor and people into nothing. "Captain." Kim had seen many battles in his 20 years of service, but nothing like this. The aliens called themselves the Veiled Empire, and they had appeared at the edge of human space just 6 months ago. Every world they touched simply stopped existing as a free place. How long did New Sol last? Kim asked, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. 4 hours and 17 minutes from first. "Contact to complete surrender," Hansel replied. "The same as Beta Centauri. The same as Wolf 359. The same as every human world they've attacked." Kim closed his eyes and tried to push away the images from the transmission. Families running through streets that exploded around them. Defense platforms that fired their most powerful weapons only to watch them bounce harmlessly off alien shields. Ships that tried to escape only to be cut down by beams that could reach across entire star systems. The bridge fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Everyone knew what those 4 hours meant. It meant the Veilthan were not just stronger than humans. It meant they were so much stronger that human weapons could not even scratch their paint. "Sir, we have another transmission coming in," Hansel said. "It's from Admiral Bora Yoon on Earth." The main screen flickered, and Admiral Yoon's face appeared. She looked older than when Kim had last seen her, with new lines around her eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. Behind her, Kim could see the chaos of the Seoul Defense Command Center. Officers ran between stations, screens showed fleet positions, and everyone moved with the desperate energy of people who knew they were losing. "Captain Kim," Admiral Yoon said, her voice steady despite everything, "I need you to fall back to Earth immediately. We're pulling in every ship we have, Admiral. What about the colonies? What about the people still trying to evacuate?" Admiral Yoon's expression grew even more serious. "The people who can run are already running. The ones who can, too." She paused, and Kim saw the weight of command on her shoulders. "We can't save them with ships that can't fight. We need every vessel at Earth for the final defense." Kim wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. His ship carried enough firepower to level a city, but against the Veilthan, it was like carrying a stick against a thunderstorm. Every human ship that had tried to fight the aliens had been destroyed in minutes. Some never even got close enough to fire their weapons. "Admiral, do we have any intelligence on their technology? Anything that might help us understand how they're so advanced?" "Our best scientists have been studying the wreckage from their attacks," Admiral Yoon replied. "The few pieces we could recover show technology that's thousands of years ahead of ours. Their hull materials don't exist on any periodic table. Their energy signatures don't match any known physics. It's like they're operating with completely different laws of science." The transmission began to break up as the Aurora prepared to jump to faster than light speed. Admiral Yoon's final words came through in fragments. "Get to Earth fast, Captain. We estimate 3 weeks before they reach our system. Maybe less." The screen went dark, and Kim turned to his helmsman. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed, and send a message to all civilian ships in our sector. Tell them to run as far from here as they can." As the Aurora jumped into hyperspace, Kim walked to the observation deck, where he could see the stars streak past like lines of light. Somewhere behind them, the Veilthan fleet was moving steadily toward Earth, destroying everything human they found along the way. Lieutenant Hien Woo Choi joined him at the window. The young officer had graduated from the academy just 2 years ago, full of hope about humanity's future among the stars. Now his face showed only fear and confusion. "Captain, I've been monitoring communications from across human space," Hien Woo said quietly. The evacuation ships from the outer colonies are reporting something strange. They say the Veilthin aren't just conquering human worlds. They're conquering everything. Kim turned to look at him. What do you mean? The refugees picked up transmissions from other species. The Kethmori had a defensive line of 12 heavily fortified worlds. The Veilthin broke through all 12 in 6 hours. The Zephyrians had quantum shields that nothing could penetrate. The aliens went through them like they weren't even there. Kim felt a chill run through him. The Kethmori were known throughout the galaxy as master warriors. Their weapons could punch holes through planets. The Zephyrians had been fighting wars for 3,000 years and had never lost a single battle. If the Veilthin could defeat them so easily, what hope did humanity have? How many species have they conquered? Kim asked. According to the intercepts, at least 47 that we know of. Some of them were so advanced that humans would have seen them as gods. But to the Veilthin, they were just another obstacle to remove. Kim stared out at the stars and tried to imagine a force so powerful that it could sweep across the galaxy like a wave, washing away entire civilizations as if they were sandcastles on a beach. Humanity had always believed they would find their place among the stars, would build great ships, and explore distant worlds. Instead, it found something that made them realize how small and weak they really were. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain to the bridge. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Defense Command. Kim and Hyenwoo hurried back to the bridge, where Hansel was already working to clean up the incoming signal. The message was short and simple, but it made Kim's blood run cold. All Earth Defense Force vessels, this is Admiral Yoon. Long-range sensors have detected the Veilthin main fleet. They will reach Earth in 18 days. All ships return to Sol System immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Earth's survival depends on every ship we have. Kim looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people, trained officers who had sworn to protect humanity. But they all knew the truth that no one wanted to say out loud. 18 days was not enough time to build weapons that could hurt the Veilthin. It was not enough time to find allies strong enough to help. It was barely enough time to prepare for the end of everything they had ever known. As the Aurora raced toward Earth, Kim wondered if this was how other species had felt in their final days. Did they also gather their forces for one last stand? Did they also hope against hope that somehow they would find a way to survive? Behind them, invisible in the darkness between stars, the Veilthin Empire continued its slow, unstoppable advance toward humanity's home world. The Earth's orbital defense platforms hummed with deadly energy as they powered up for the first time in 50 years. Commander Soojin Park stood on the command deck of Defense Station Alpha, watching as massive railguns rotated toward the edge of the solar system. Below her, Earth looked peaceful and blue, with white clouds drifting across continents that held 8 billion souls. All platforms report ready. Commander, said Lieutenant Minji Lee, her fingers dancing across control panels. Particle cannons at full charge, missile batteries loaded, and energy shields at maximum power. Soojin nodded but felt no confidence in their preparations. The defense platforms had been built to stop human enemies. It's not aliens whose technology made them look like children playing with toys. Still, they had to try. Every human being in the system was depending on them. Commander, we have civilian ships requesting permission to pass through the defense grid, reported Sergeant Junho Nam from the communications station. Refugee vessels from the outer colonies. Let them through, Soojin ordered, and broadcast the evacuation routes to the inner system. Anyone who wants to run further should do it now. Through the massive windows of the command deck, Soojin could see the refugee ships streaming past Earth toward the outer planets. Some were luxury liners packed beyond capacity with families. Others were cargo haulers converted to carry people instead of goods. All of them flew with the desperate speed of prey fleeing from hunters. On the planet's surface, General Taesoon Lee coordinated the ground defenses from a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. His screens showed defensive positions around every major city, weapons that could shoot down incoming ships, and shelters that might protect civilians from orbital bombardment. But he knew, just as Soojin knew, that these preparations were probably useless. "Sir, we have movement at the edge of the system," called out Captain Youngmi Shin from the sensor station. Multiple contacts, moving at incredible speed. General Lee felt his stomach drop. "How many ships?" "Counting now, sir. We're seeing ... hundreds, maybe thousands. They're coming from multiple directions, surrounding the entire system." Through the defense network, Sujin received the same information at the same time. Her blood ran cold as the numbers kept climbing. 2,000 ships, 3,000, 5,000. The Veilthan had brought a fleet large enough to conquer an entire galaxy arm. Just to destroy one human world, all defense platforms. "This is Commander Park." She broadcast to every weapon station in Earth orbit. "Enemy fleet detected at system edge. Prepare for combat. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human being who ever lived." The Veilthan fleet moved through space like a dark tide flowing toward. Their ships were sleek and black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The largest vessel at the center of the formation was over 1 kilometer long, a massive fortress that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Lieutenant Hien Wu Choi, now stationed at Earth Defense Command, monitored communications channels as the alien fleet approached. His equipment picked up transmissions in languages that computer systems could not translate. But then suddenly, a new signal came through on all human frequencies. The voice that spoke was cold and mechanical, translated by technology far beyond human understanding. Species designation: human. You have been selected for integration into the Veilthan Empire. Surrender your military forces immediately and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in total extinction. Admiral Bor Yoon, commanding from the bridge of the battleship Incheon, responded immediately. "This is Admiral Yoon of the Earth Defense Force. We reject your demand for surrender. If you want our world, you'll have to take it." The response came back within seconds. "Your response is noted. Integration will proceed through force. Your species will serve the Empire or cease to exist." The transmission ended, and silence fell across every human communication channel. Admiral Yoon looked around her bridge at officers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. They were good people, brave people, but they all knew they were about to die fighting an enemy they could not hope to defeat. "All ships. This is Admiral Yoon." She broadcast to the Earth Defense Fleet. "We knew this day might come. We knew we might face something stronger than us. Today we find out what humanity is really made of. Fight well. Fight to the end. And remember that our families are watching." The Veilthan flagship launched the first attack. A beam of pure energy, brighter than the sun, struck Defense Station Beta, the massive platform. Designed to survive direct hits from nuclear weapons, simply vanished. One moment it was there, bristling with guns and shields. The next moment, there was empty space and scattered particles. "Station Beta is gone," reported Lieutenant Lee, a voice barely steady. "No debris, no explosion. It just stopped existing." Commander Park felt the fear rise in her throat, but she pushed it down. All platforms returned fire. Target the largest ship. Every weapon in Earth's orbital defense network fired at once. Railgun slugs moving at incredible speed, particle beams hot enough to melt asteroids, and missiles carrying warheads that could crack continents. The combined firepower of humanity's greatest weapons struck the Veilthan. Flagshipdom did absolutely nothing. The alien ship's shields absorbed the attacks like water soaking into sand. The massive vessel didn't even slow down as it continued its approach toward Earth. Around it, smaller Veilthan ships began picking off defense platforms with casual ease, their weapons destroying in seconds what had taken years to build. "Admiral, we're not even scratching them," reported Captain Daeho Kim from the Aurora, which had joined the defense fleet just hours before the attack began. "Our weapons aren't strong enough to penetrate their shields." Admiral Yoon watched her fleet die around her. The battleship's soul exploded under alien fire, taking 800 crew members with it. The cruiser Busan tried to ram a Veilthan destroyer and was vaporized before it could make contact. One by one, The ships she had served with for decades were disappearing from her tactical display. "All remaining vessels, fall back to Earth orbit," she ordered. "We'll make our stand around the planet." But even as she gave the order, Admiral Yoon knew it was hopeless. The Veilthin had weapons that could destroy entire fleets with single shots. They had shields that no human weapon could penetrate. They had speed that made their ships appear to teleport across space. On the planet below, General Lee watched the battle through satellite feeds. The orbital platforms were falling one by one, their death throes lighting up space around Earth like deadly fireworks. Soon the alien ships would begin bombing the surface, and all his ground defenses would be meaningless. Lieutenant Hyan Woo-choi, intercept another transmission. This one from deep space. It was a message from other alien species, broadcast on frequencies the Veilthin couldn't block. The voices spoke in dozens of languages, but the universal translators made their meaning clear. The Kethmori hegemony has fallen. 700 worlds conquered in 6 hours. The Zephyrian Crystal Fleet is destroyed. 3,000 years of military tradition ended in one battle. The Silicon Brotherhood offers no resistance. Their computational networks have been enslaved. Species after species falls to the Veilthin advance. Nothing can stop them. Nothing has ever stopped them. Hyan Woo looked at the message log and felt despair wash over him. 47 species had tried to fight the Veilthin Empire. Some had weapons that could destroy stars. Others had technology that seemed like magic. All of them had failed. All of them were now slaves or extinct, as the last of Earth's defense platforms died in silent explosions. Admiral Yoon prepared to give the order for the fleet to make a final charge against the alien ships. It would be suicide. At least they would die fighting rather than surrender. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, her communications officer called out in surprise. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission. It's encrypted with codes I've never seen before. The source is the Kuiper Belt." The message appeared on Admiral Yoon's screen. It contained coordinates to a location beyond Pluto and a single word that made no sense. Blackstar. Admiral Yoon stared at the message as alien ships closed in around Earth. She had never heard the word Blackstar before, but something about it filled her with a hope she couldn't explain. Maybe somewhere in the darkness beyond the planets, humanity had one last card to play. "Captain Kim," she broadcast to the Aurora, "I have a special mission for you. Break off from the fleet and investigate these coordinates. Maximum speed. But Admiral, we're needed here for the final battle. The battle here is already lost, Captain. But maybe, just maybe, there's still hope somewhere else. Find out what Blackstar means. Find out if we have any cards left to play." As the Aurora broke away from the dying fleet and accelerated toward the outer solar system, the Veilthin ships moved into final position around Earth. Soon they would demand humanity's surrender again. And this time, Admiral Yoon feared she would have no choice but to accept, unless Blackstar, whatever it was, could somehow change everything. Captain Janae. Song stood on the bridge of the stealth frigate US Phantom as it approached the coordinates Admiral Yoon had given them. The ship moved silently through the darkness beyond Pluto, its hull designed to be invisible to most sensors. Behind them, Earth was fighting for its life. But out here in the cold emptiness, everything was quiet. "Captain, I'm reading something massive ahead," reported Navigation Officer Woo-jin Park, his eyes wide as he stared at his instruments. "It's huge, but it's not showing up on any of our standard sensors." Captain Song frowned. "What do you mean it's not showing up?" "I mean, our radar sees empty space, but our gravity sensors detect something the size of a small moon. Whatever it is, it's bending space around itself. Through the bridge windows, space looked completely empty. There were only distant stars and the faint glow of the sun far behind them. But as the Phantom moved closer to the coordinates, something began to shimmer in the darkness ahead, like heat waves rising from hot concrete. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," called out Communications Officer Daeyoon Kim. "It's using Earth's military codes, but they're 30 years out of date." The main screen flickered, and a face appeared that Captain Song didn't recognize. It was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, wearing a uniform she had never seen before. "This is Dr. Minho Kwan of Project Deepwater," the man said. "You're probably wondering what you're looking at, or rather, what you're not looking at. Please follow the guidance beacon to Docking Bay 7 and Captain Song. Prepare your crew for some very big surprises." Captain Song felt a chill run down her spine. How does he know my name? And what's Project Deepwater? The space ahead began to change as they approached. What had looked like empty darkness started to reveal itself as something enormous. A space station bigger than anything humanity had ever built slowly became visible, its hull reflecting starlight in strange ways that hurt to look at directly. "Captain, that station is at least 50 kilometers long," whispered Wu Jin. "How did we never detect it? How did no one ever find it?" "Because we didn't want to be found," came a voice from the communication system. Dr. Kwan was still watching them from the screen. "What you're seeing is 30 years of work by the brightest minds Earth has ever produced. We've been preparing for this day since before most of your crew was born." The Phantom docked at a bay that was clearly designed for their ship. As soon as the airlock sealed, Captain Song and her senior officers walked through corridors that seemed to bend and twist in ways that made no sense. The walls were made of materials that shifted color as they walked past, and the air itself felt different somehow. Dr. Kwan met them in a conference room that overlooked the station's central chamber. Through the massive windows, Captain Song could see something that made her forget how to breathe. The USS Blackstar hung in the center of the chamber like a dark angel waiting to spread its wings. The ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time, its hull made of materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It was about the same size as a human battleship, but everything about it screamed that it was built with technology far beyond anything she had ever seen. "What is that?" Captain Song asked, though she was almost afraid to hear the answer. Dr. Kwan smiled sadly. "That, Captain, is humanity's last hope, and possibly our first step toward becoming something more than we ever imagined." He led them to another room filled with strange devices and computer screens, showing data that looked like no science Captain Song had ever studied. Engineer Yuna Kim was there, wearing the same unusual uniform as Dr. Kwan. Her hands moved across control panels that seemed to respond to her thoughts rather than her. "Touch, 30 years ago," Dr. Kwan began. "A deep-sea mining operation in the Mariana Trench found something that shouldn't exist. Artifacts buried in rock that was millions of years old, but clearly built by intelligent beings. The technology was so advanced that our best scientists could barely understand what they were looking at." He showed them images on a screen. Strange metal objects covered in symbols that seemed to move when you looked at them directly. Devices that generated energy from nothing. Blueprints that showed how to build things that violated every law of physics. "We brought the artifacts here in secret," Dr. Kwan continued. "The world's governments didn't know about them. Even most of the military didn't know. We formed a small group of scientists, engineers, and visionaries who understood that these artifacts might be the key to humanity's survival among the stars." Engineer Kim looked up from her control panels. "The beings who built these things were so advanced that their basic technology is like magic to us. Their ships could move through dimensions we can't even detect. Their weapons could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality." Captain Song stared at the Blackstar through the window. "You've built that ship using alien technology?" "Not alien," Dr. Kwan corrected. "Something much older, much more advanced. The artifacts predate any known civilization by millions of years. Whoever built them was so far beyond us that we're like ants trying to understand how humans build computers. But we learned," Engineer Kim added. "Slowly, piece by piece, we figured out how to make the technology work. The Blackstar is the result of 3 decades of the most advanced research in human history." Captain Song felt overwhelmed. Why keep it secret? Why not share this technology with everyone? Dr. Kwan's expression grew serious. "Because we knew this day would come. We detected signals from deep space 20 years ago that told us something terrible was moving in our direction. Something that conquered entire civilizations and turned them into slaves. We knew humanity would need a miracle to survive, through the station's communication system. They could hear updates from Earth. The veil-thin fleet was demanding surrender. The last of humanity's defense ships were being destroyed. Time was running out. "The Blackstar is ready," Engineer Kim announced. "But it needs a crew who can handle the neural interface systems." The ship doesn't just respond to controls. It bonds with its crew at a mental level. Dr. Kwan turned to Captain Song. "We need your best pilot, Captain. Someone brave enough to risk their sanity to save humanity. The neural interface is dangerous. Previous test subjects experienced severe psychological effects. Some never recovered." From the docking bay came the sound of approaching footsteps. Captain Jamin Han of the Earth Defense Force walked into the room, his face grim with determination. He had been selected for this mission even before Captain Song knew what the mission was. "I volunteer," Captain Han said simply. "I've read the briefings. I know the risks. But if this ship can save Earth, then I'll do whatever it takes." Engineer Kim looked worried. "Captain Han, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. The neural interface will change you. You'll be connected to technology that operates on principles we barely understand. You might not be entirely human when it's over." Captain Han looked through the window at the Blackstar, and back at the screen showing Earth's desperate battle. "If being human means watching our species get wiped out, then maybe it's time to become something else." Dr. Kwan nodded slowly. "The original builders of this technology left us a message in the artifacts. They said that only species ready to transcend their limitations could use their gifts. Maybe this is humanity's test. Maybe this is our chance to prove we're ready for a larger role in the universe." As they prepared the Blackstar for launch, Captain Song couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. The ship hanging in the central chamber wasn't just a weapon. It was a doorway to something bigger and more dangerous than any of them could imagine. "How do we know this will work?" she asked Dr. Kwan. The old scientist looked at her with eyes that held 30 years of hope and fear. "We don't. But right now, it's the only chance we have. The only chance humanity has ever had against something like the Veil-Thin Empire outside the station." Space remained empty and cold. But inside the hidden facility, the USS Blackstar was waking up. Its systems began to hum with energy that came from dimensions beyond normal understanding. Soon, it would either save humanity or destroy them in the attempt. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Jamin Han felt the neural interface helmet settle over his head as he sat in the command chair of the USS Blackstar. The device was made of the same strange material as the ship itself. Metal that seemed to flow like liquid, but felt solid to the touch. Engineer Yuna Kim monitored the connection from her station, her face tight with concern. "Neural pathways are syncing," she reported. "Captain, you're going to feel strange for a moment. The ship is learning your thought patterns." Han closed his eyes as waves of sensation washed through his mind. It felt like someone was gently touching the inside of his brain, reading his memories and understanding how he thought. For a terrifying moment, he wondered if he was losing himself. Then suddenly, everything became clear. He could feel the ship around him like it was part of his own body. Every system, every weapon, every sensor was as familiar as his own hands. The Blackstar wasn't just a machine anymore. It was alive, and he was its mind. "Connection established," Han said, though his voice sounded different somehow. "All systems are responding. We're ready to launch." Navigator Saw Young Bae looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, the sensors are showing me things I've never seen before. I can detect objects in dimensions that don't exist in normal space. It's like having eyes that can see through reality itself." Weapons Officer Chungmin was equally amazed by his instruments. "These weapons don't operate on any principles I understand. The targeting computer is showing me how to hit enemies by shooting through space that isn't there." Dr. Minho Kwan watched from the station's command center as the Blackstar powered up. The ship's hull began to shimmer with energy that made the space around it bend and twist. "Remember, Captain, you're not just fighting with advanced technology. You're fighting with science so far beyond us that it might as well be magic." The Blackstar launched from the hidden station and immediately jumped into, faster than light travel. But this wasn't the hyperspace that human ships used. This was something else entirely. A way of moving through space that folded reality around the ship like paper. Within minutes, they emerged near Earth where the battle was reaching its final stages. The Veilthan fleet had destroyed almost all of humanity's defenses. The few remaining Earth ships were making desperate attacks that had no effect on the alien vessels. Captain, the Veilthan flagship is preparing to fire on Earth's surface, reported communications. Officer Yoonji Shin, they're targeting major population centers. Han felt anger flowed through him, but it was mixed with something else. The ship was angry too, and its rage was like nothing any human had ever experienced. The Blackstar wanted to fight. It had been built for this moment. All alien ships. This is Captain Han of the USS Blackstar. He broadcast on all frequencies. You will cease your attack on Earth immediately and withdraw from this system. The response came quickly from the Veilthan flagship. The alien voice was cold and mechanical, translated by technology that turned thoughts into words. Unknown vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. No human technology can threaten the Veilthan Empire. Then it's a good thing this isn't human technology, Han replied. The Veilthan flagship turned toward the Blackstar, and Han got his first close look at the enemy. The alien ship was massive, over a kilometer long, with a hull that seemed to absorb light. Weapons ports along its sides could probably destroy entire cities with single shots. All weapons. Target the unknown vessel, came the alien commander's voice over intercepted communications. Use maximum firepower. The Veilthan flagship fired everything it had. Energy beams that could vaporize moons struck the Blackstar's position. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small planet. Concentrated into a space no larger than a football field, the beams hit the Blackstar and simply vanished. Han felt the ship's dimensional shields absorb the attack like a sponge soaking up water. The energy that should have destroyed them was redirected into other dimensions, scattered across realities that the Veilthan couldn't even detect. Impossible, came the alien commander's voice. Now, with a note of something that might have been surprise, our weapons have no effect. How is this possible? Sawyang, show me their fleet positions, Han said to his navigator. The tactical display that appeared in his mind was unlike anything human technology could produce. He could see every ship, every weapon, every shield generator, all mapped in perfect detail across multiple dimensions. Double quotes Chang-Min, prepare a warning shot. Target their flagship, but don't destroy it. Just show them what we can do. Weapons Officer O worked at controls that seemed to respond to his thoughts. Captain, I'm not sure I understand how these weapons work. The targeting computer is suggesting something it calls a dimensional penetrator. Trust the ship, Han said. It knows what it's doing. The Blackstar's main cannon fired what looked like a sphere of absolute darkness. The projectile moved through space in ways that violated every law of physics, existing in multiple dimensions at once. It passed through the Veilthan flagship's shields as if they weren't there, because from the projectile's perspective, they weren't. The dark sphere struck the alien ship's hull and erased a perfect circular section 50 meters across. Not destroyed, not vaporized, simply removed from existence. The edges of the hull were smooth and clean, as if that part of the ship had never been built. Silence filled the communication channels for several seconds. Then the alien commander's voice returned, but now it carried something Han had never expected to hear from the Veilthan. Fear, what are you? The alien demanded. What kind of beings are you? We're human, Han replied simply, and we're done being afraid of you. More Veilthan ships turned toward the Blackstar, their weapons charging for another attack. But Han could feel through the ship's sensors that something had changed. The aliens were no longer acting with the casual confidence they had shown when destroying human defenses. They were scared. All ships concentrate fire on the unknown vessel, ordered the alien commander. Use everything we have. Dozens of Veilthan warships fired at once. The space around the Blackstar filled with energy beams, plasma bolts, and weapons that human science had no names for. It was enough firepower to crack a continent. All of it simply disappeared when it touched the Blackstar's shields. Youngji, are you picking up their internal communications? Han asked. Communications Officer Shin nodded, her face pale with amazement. Yes, Captain. They're panicking. I'm hearing words like impossible and unknown technology over and over. Some of their ships are requesting permission to retreat. Navigator Bay looked up from her instruments. Captain, more Veilton ships are arriving. Looks like they're calling in reinforcements from across their empire. But there's something else. I'm detecting signals from other species. I think word is spreading that someone is finally fighting back against the Veilton. Han felt the ship's consciousness merge more deeply with his own. The Blackstar was showing him tactical possibilities that no human mind could have conceived. He could attack from multiple dimensions at once, strike enemies through folded space, and defend against weapons that operated outside normal reality. Chang-Min, target 3 of their destroyers. Show them that our warning shot wasn't luck. The Blackstar fired 3 more dimensional penetrators. Each one found its target despite shields that should have been impenetrable. 3 Veilton warships simply ceased to exist, erased from reality so completely that there wasn't even debris left behind. Retreat. Came panicked voices from the alien fleet. Request immediate reinforcement from the home fleet. We are facing unknown technology that renders our weapons useless. But the Veilthon flagship held its position. Its commander spoke again, and this time Han could hear desperation beneath the mechanical translation. You cannot be human. Humans are weak. Humans are primitive. We have conquered 47 species, some far more advanced than yours. Nothing in this galaxy can stand against the Veilthon Empire. Then maybe, Han replied, his voice carrying the strange harmony of human thought merged with ancient technology. It's time for something from outside this galaxy to teach you humility. Around Earth. The surviving human ships watched in amazement as a single vessel faced down the entire Veilthon fleet. Admiral Bora Yoon, still commanding from her battered flagship, opened a communication channel to the Blackstar. Captain Han. This is Admiral Yoon. I don't know what that ship is, or where it came from, but I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life. Han smiled, though the expression felt strange on a face that was no longer entirely human. Admiral, this is just the beginning. The Veilthon wanted to add humanity to their list of conquered species. Instead, they're about to learn what happens when you threaten a species that was chosen by beings who built wonders. Across the universe before the Veilthon Empire was even born as more alien reinforcements arrived from across their empire. Han prepared for the real battle to begin. The Blackstar hummed with power that came from dimensions beyond counting, and somewhere in the back of his transformed mind, he could feel ancient voices whispering approval. The Veilthon had never lost a battle in their entire history, but they had never faced anything like the USS Blackstar, and they had never faced humanity when it had access to TH. The Emperor of the Veilthon Empire sat on his throne aboard the massive fortress ship Eternal Dominion, as it moved through space toward the Sol system. The vessel was the size of a small moon, carrying weapons that had destroyed entire star systems and reduced civilizations to dust. Never before had the Emperor himself come to oversee a conquest, but the reports from Earth were impossible to believe. Show me the recordings again, the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the throne room. The walls displayed images of the battle at Earth, showing a single human ship destroying Veilthon vessels with weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. My Emperor, said General Vexkar, the highest military commander in the Empire. Our forces report that their weapons have no effect on this vessel. It appears to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our scientists cannot explain how such technology is possible. The Emperor studied the images of the USS Blackstar as it moved through space like a dark ghost. The ship seemed to flicker in and out of reality, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes translucent, sometimes vanishing entirely before reappearing somewhere else. Bring every weapon we have, the Emperor ordered. Activate the Void Destroyers. Recall the World Cracker fleet from the Andromeda campaign. I want enough firepower to shatter this entire system." Meanwhile, Captain Jamin Han felt the Blackstar respond to his thoughts as more Veilthan ships arrived in the Sol system. Through the neural interface, he could sense the ship's eagerness for battle. The ancient technology was awakening fully, remembering purposes and capabilities that had been dormant for millions of years. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from multiple vectors," reported Navigator Sa Young Bei. "These ships are much larger than anything we've seen before. Some of them are the size of asteroids." Lieutenant Commander Dong-hyuk Park, the ship's tactical officer, studied the incoming vessels with instruments that could see across dimensions. "Captain, these aren't just warships. Some of them appear to be mobile weapons platforms designed to destroy entire planets. The energy readings suggest they could crack a world in half." Han nodded, feeling the ship's consciousness merge more deeply with his own. The Blackstar was showing him things about warfare that no human had ever imagined. Combat wasn't just about shooting at enemies in normal space. It was about fighting across multiple realities at once, using time itself as a weapon. "Dong-hyuk, what are our tactical options?" Han asked. The tactical officer's eyes widened as he read displays that showed possibilities beyond normal understanding. "Captain, the ship is suggesting strategies I can barely comprehend. We can attack enemies before they arrive, strike from the past, or hit them from dimensions they can't even detect. It's like having the ability to fight a chess game where we can move pieces through time." The first wave of Veilthan reinforcements emerged from faster-than-light travel. 3 massive dreadnoughts, each one carrying enough firepower to sterilize a continent, immediately targeted the Blackstar. Their weapons were different from the standard Veilthan arsenal, designed specifically to crack planetary shields and break apart moons. "All ships, target the unknown vessel," came the command from the lead dreadnought. "Use the matter disruptors. Nothing can survive direct molecular breakdown." The 3 ships fired beams that could unravel matter at the atomic level. The weapons struck the Blackstar simultaneously, concentrating enough destructive force to erase a mountain. The beams passed through the ship as if it wasn't there. "Impossible," breathed the Veilthan commander. "The matter disruptors affect all forms of physical existence. How can it have no effect?" Han smiled as he felt the ship explain the answer directly to his mind. "Because we're not fighting in just one form of physical existence anymore." The Blackstar flickered and suddenly appeared in 3 different locations at once. Each copy of the ship was equally real, equally deadly. The Veilthan sensors couldn't tell which one was the original, because from the ship's perspective, they all were. "Changmin, target all 3 dreadnoughts." Han ordered weapons officer. "Oh, use the temporal displacement cannons. Chang-Min. Oh worked at controls that seemed to respond to his intentions rather than his actions. "Captain, I'm still not sure I understand how these weapons work. The targeting computer is showing me how to shoot at where the enemies were 5 minutes ago and have the shots arrive now." "Trust the ship," Han said. "It's been fighting wars like this since before our son was born." The Blackstar fired from all 3 positions simultaneously, but instead of normal projectiles, it launched attacks through time itself. The shots traveled backward through moments, striking the Veilthan dreadnoughts before they had finished emerging from faster-than-light. Travel, the 3 massive warships simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, but erased from the timeline entirely. One moment they were there, the next moment they had never existed. The Veilthan fleet suddenly found themselves missing 3 ships. But their records showed no evidence that those ships had ever been built. "What is happening?" demanded General Vexkar from his command ship. "We lost 3 dreadnoughts, but our computers show no record of them ever being deployed." The Blackstar's actions were causing panic throughout the Veilthan fleet. Ships that had conquered galaxies were now afraid to approach a single human vessel. Commanders who had never known defeat were requesting permission to retreat. "Navigator, what's the status of the Emperor's flagship?" Han asked, so Dashung Bei checked her instruments, which now showed her information about objects that existed across multiple dimensions. "Captain, it's massive. Bigger than anything we've ever seen. But the ship is telling me it's not just a warship. It's some kind of dimensional anchor. It's designed to lock entire star systems in place so they can't escape conquest. Engineer Yuna Kim, monitoring the neural interface from her station, noticed something troubling. Captain, your brain patterns are changing. The connection with the ship is getting stronger, but you're becoming less human with each minute. Han could feel the truth of her words. The ancient technology was transforming him, giving him knowledge and abilities that no human mind was designed to hold. He could see patterns in space and time that revealed the hidden connections between all things. He could feel the thoughts of his crew, the fear of the Veil-Thin fleet, and the hopes of humanity watching from Earth. "I can handle it," he said, though his voice now carried harmonics that didn't sound entirely human. "The ship needs me to understand its full potential." The Emperor's fortress ship, Eternal Dominion, finally arrived in the system, bringing with it weapons that had never been used against any enemy. The vessel's main cannon could destabilize the nuclear forces holding matter together, essentially causing targeted areas of space to cease existing. "My Emperor," reported General Vexkar, "the unknown vessel has destroyed 17 of our ships without taking any damage. Our weapons appear to have no effect whatsoever. Some of our commanders are reporting that the ship seems to attack from impossible angles, as if it exists in more than 3 dimensions." The Emperor rose from his throne, his alien features twisted with rage and disbelief. For 3,000 years, the Veil-Thin Empire had conquered everything they encountered. No species had ever posed a real threat. No technology had ever challenged their supremacy. "Activate the reality disruptor," the Emperor commanded. "If normal weapons cannot touch this vessel, we will use the weapon that can unmake the very fabric of space itself, the massive cannon at the front of the front." Eternal Dominion began to charge with energy drawn from parallel dimensions. The weapon was so powerful that using it could damage reality itself, creating scars in space-time that might never heal. Han felt the ship's consciousness surge with something that might have been excitement. Through the neural interface, he understood that the Blackstar had been waiting for an enemy worthy of its full attention. The Veil-Thin's ultimate weapon would finally force it to reveal capabilities that had been hidden since its creation. "All crew, prepare for combat beyond anything you can imagine," Han announced throughout the ship. "We're about to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens a species that was chosen to inherit the universe." As the Emperor's weapon charged to fire, the USS Blackstar began to change. Its hull started to glow with light that came from dimensions beyond counting. Around Earth, the surviving human ships watched in awe as their impossible protector prepared to face a weapon designed to destroy reality itself. The real battle was about to begin. The reality disruptor on the Emperor's fortress ship Eternal Dominion reached full charge. Drawing power from the collapsed cores of dead stars, the weapon was designed to tear holes in the fabric of existence itself, creating wounds in reality that could swallow entire solar systems. Never before had it been used against a single ship, but the USS Blackstar had proven immune to every other weapon in the Veil-Thin arsenal. Captain Jamin. Han felt the approaching danger through the neural interface, but he also felt something else. The ship was excited. The ancient technology had been built by beings who understood warfare on levels that most species couldn't even imagine, and it was finally facing an enemy worthy of its true capabilities. "Captain, that weapon is charging with enough energy to destroy everything in this system," reported Navigator So Young-bae, her voice tight with fear. "The energy readings are off any scale I've ever seen." Han nodded, but his response was calm. Through the ship's consciousness, he could see possibilities that no human mind should be able to comprehend. "The ship is showing me something. We're not going to dodge this attack. We're going to do something else entirely." Dr. Minho Kwan, monitoring from the hidden station beyond Pluto, watched as the Blackstar began to change. The ship's hull started to glow with light that came from dimensions beyond normal space. Energy patterns flowed across its surface like living things, and space itself seemed to bend around the vessel. "The ship is accessing its full potential," he whispered to Engineer Yuna Kim. "Captain Han is becoming something more than human, and the Blackstar is becoming something more than a ship across the galaxy." Other species were watching the battle through intercepted transmissions. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone was fighting the Veilthan Empire on equal terms. Enslaved civilizations that had given up hope began to whisper about rebellion. Lieutenant Commander Dong Hook Park studied his tactical displays as they showed him information that challenged his understanding of reality. "Captain, the ship is suggesting a strategy that I can barely understand. It wants to exist in multiple timelines simultaneously and attack the Emperor's vessel from different points in history." "Do it," Han said, his voice now carrying harmonics that sounded like music from another dimension. "Let the ship show us how gods fight wars." The USS Blackstar began to split across time itself. Copies of the ship appeared in the same location, but at different moments, all equally real, all equally deadly. One version existed 5 minutes in the past, another existed in the present, and a third existed 5 minutes in the future. All three ships occupied the same space, but at different points in the timeline. The Emperor watched this impossible display from his throne and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. True, bone-deep terror at facing something beyond his understanding. "Fire the reality disruptor," he commanded. "Destroy that abomination before it can act." The massive weapon discharged, sending a beam of pure destruction toward the Blackstar. The attack was designed to unravel the fundamental forces that held matter together, reducing anything it touched to component particles scattered across dimensions. The beam struck all three versions of the Blackstar simultaneously. For a moment, space itself seemed to scream as reality bent under the assault. But instead of being destroyed, the ship did something that made the Emperor's blood run cold. It absorbed the attack, the reality. Disruptor's beam disappeared into the Blackstar's hull like water soaking into sand. The ship's temporal copies merged back together, and Captain Han felt knowledge flowing into his mind that no human brain was designed to hold. "The ship understands now," Han said, speaking to his crew, but also to something far greater. "It knows what it was built to fight. Not just empires or fleets, but forces that threaten the very nature of existence itself." Communications Officer Jin picked up transmissions from across the Veilthan fleet. "Captain, they're panicking. I'm hearing reports of ships requesting permission to surrender. Some of them are already fleeing the system." The Emperor rose from his throne, his alien features twisted with rage and disbelief. "Impossible. The reality disruptor has never failed. It has destroyed entire star systems. How can one ship absorb that much destructive force?" General Vexkar, monitoring from his command vessel, had no answer. His instruments showed readings that violated every law of physics he knew. The human ship wasn't just immune to their weapons. It was learning from each attack. It's becoming stronger and more dangerous with every moment. "My Emperor Vexkar reported. The unknown vessel is beginning to move. It's approaching our position. But our sensors show it traveling through dimensions we cannot detect." The Blackstar phase shifted through reality, existing in multiple dimensions at once. It moved toward the Emperor's fortress ship, not through normal space, but through the gaps between realities. To the Veilthan sensors, it seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Sometimes visible, sometimes not. But always getting closer, Captain Han felt the ship's consciousness merge completely with his own. He was no longer just human, and the Blackstar was no longer just a machine. They had become something new. Something that could fight wars across multiple dimensions of space and time. "Chongmin, target the Emperor's ship," Han ordered. "But don't destroy it completely. We need to send a message that will be heard across the entire galaxy." Weapons Officer, worked at controls that now responded to his thoughts rather than his touch. "Captain, the ship is showing me weapon configurations I've never seen before. It wants to use something called a temporal paradox cannon. Do it." The Blackstar fired a weapon that attacked not just the Emperor's ship, but its entire history. The beam traveled backward through time, striking the Eternal Dominion at the moment it was first built. Then, following its timeline forward to the present moment, the massive fortress ship began to age rapidly. Centuries of wear appeared on its hull in seconds. Systems that had worked perfectly for millennia suddenly failed. The vessel that had been the pride of the Veilthan Empire started to fall apart as time itself turned against it. "What is happening to my ship?" the Emperor demanded, watching as his throne room began to crack and crumble around him. "You wanted to fight gods?" came Captain Han's voice over the communication channels. But it no longer sounded entirely human. "Now, you're learning what happens when gods fight back." The Eternal Dominion broke apart not from external damage, but from the weight of accelerated time. The ship that had existed for 3,000 years experienced all of its future history in minutes, aging until it could no longer hold together as the Emperor's flagship died around him. Transmissions began flooding in from across the veil-thin empire. News of the impossible defeat was spreading faster than light itself, carried by communication networks that connected every world under their control. On enslaved planets throughout the galaxy, species that had surrendered to veil-thin rule began to rise up. The empire that had seemed unstoppable for 3 millennia was suddenly revealed to be vulnerable. If one human ship could defeat their greatest weapons, then perhaps freedom was possible after all. Admiral Yun Han broadcast to the surviving Earth Defense Force ships. "The Veilton fleet is in full retreat. The Emperor is dead, and their empire is collapsing. But this is just the beginning." Admiral Biora Yun, still commanding from her battered flagship, could barely believe what she was seeing. The alien fleet that had seemed unstoppable just hours ago was fleeing the system in panic. Ships that had conquered civilizations were running away from a single human vessel. "Captain Han, what happens now?" she asked. Han's response came through communication channels that seemed to carry echoes from other dimensions. "Now humanity learns what it means to inherit the universe. The beings who built this technology left it for us to find. They knew this day would come. They knew we would need to become something more than what we were." As the last Veilton ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Carrying news of their empire's defeat to every corner of the galaxy, the USS Blackstar hung in space, near Earth like a dark angel watching over its children. But Captain Han could feel through the ship's ancient senses that something else was stirring in the deep void between galaxies. The activation of the lost technology had sent signals across unimaginable distances, and something vast and terrible was beginning to take notice. The Veilthan Empire was finished. But the real test of humanity's worthiness was still to come. 3 months after the defeat of the Veilthan Empire, Captain Jamin Han stood on the bridge of the USS Blackstar as it patrolled the edge of human space. The neural interface had changed him completely. He could see across dimensions that most beings couldn't imagine, think in patterns that spanned multiple realities, and understand the hidden connections that bound the universe together. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions." From the Kethmori hegemony, reported Communications Officer Yunji Shin, they're requesting permission to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. "It's the same message we've been getting from dozens of species across the galaxy," Han nodded. Though his attention was focused on something far more important than diplomacy, through the ship's ancient senses, he could detect movements in the void between galaxies. Something was approaching from distances so vast that light from those regions had not yet reached. Admiral Bora Yun had established the Galactic Contact Office on Luna Station, where representatives from liberated species gathered to discuss the new order emerging from the collapse of the Veilthan Empire. The former slave races spoke of humanity with a mixture of gratitude and fear, uncertain how to relate to beings who wielded such incomprehensible power. "Admiral," said Ambassador Wajun Park, the newly appointed head of alien relations, "the Zephyrian Crystal Collective wants to share their quantum shield technology with us. The Silicon Brotherhood is offering computational support for our research programs. Everyone wants to be allied with the species that defeated the Veilthan." Admiral Yun looked through the station windows at Earth, still blue and peaceful despite everything that had happened. "What do they want in return?" "Protection," Ambassador Park replied simply. "They're all afraid that another empire like the Veilthan might arise. They want humanity to serve as galactic peacekeepers." Meanwhile, Dr. Minho Kwan worked in his laboratory aboard the hidden station. Studying the ancient artifacts that had made the Blackstar possible, The more he learned about the technology, the more questions arose about its creators. Beings who built these devices were facing something terrible, he explained to engineer Yuna Kim, as they examined symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Their records speak of entities from outside our reality, forces that could consume entire dimensions. They built the Blackstar and other weapons not to conquer, but to defend against something that threatened the very existence of life itself. Engineer Kim looked worried. If they were so advanced, what happened to them? Where did they go? Dr. Kwan pointed to a section of the artifact covered in symbols that hurt to look at for too long. According to these records, they transcended physical existence entirely. They became beings of pure energy and thought, existing in dimensions beyond the reach of any physical threat. But they left their technology behind as a test. A test for what? To see if any species would prove worthy of inheriting their responsibility? The artifacts only activate for civilizations that face extinction and still choose to fight for others rather than just themselves. Back on the Blackstar, Navigator Saw Young Bei detected the first clear signals from whatever was approaching from beyond the galaxy. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures moving through intergalactic space. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything we've ever encountered, and it's heading directly for our galaxy. Captain, felt the ship's consciousness stir with something that might have been anticipation. Through the neural interface, ancient knowledge flowed into his transformed mind. The beings who had built the Blackstar had faced this enemy before, eons ago, and now it was returning. What are we looking at? Asked Lieutenant Commander Dong Huge, parked from his tactical station. Han's response came through lips that were still human, but spoke with the wisdom of beings who had seen the birth and death of galaxies. Entities from dimensions where entropy runs backward, where death feeds life, and where existence itself is considered a disease to be cured. They consume realities the way fire consumes wood, leaving nothing but empty void behind. The crew of the Blackstar felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. They had just finished defeating an empire that seemed unstoppable, only to learn that something infinitely worse was approaching. How long do we have? Asked Weapons Officer Chung Meno. Captain. Han consulted senses that could perceive the flow of time across multiple dimensions. They move slowly because they exist partially outside our reality. 6 months, maybe less, before they reach the outer edge of our galaxy, Admiral. Yoon received the news during a meeting with alien ambassadors on Luna Station. The representatives of 47 species fell silent as she explained what humanity had learned about the approaching threat. The Devourers are why the ancient builders left their technology behind, Admiral Yoon told the assembled delegates. They knew this enemy would return eventually, and they wanted to ensure that someone would be ready to fight them. Ambassador Tolkir of the Kethmori hegemony, a warrior species that had never shown fear in 3,000 years of conflict, spoke with a trembling voice. Our oldest legends speak of the dark time when entire star clusters went silent and never returned signals. We thought they were myths. They weren't myths, Admiral Yoon replied. They were memories. The Devourers have been here before. They'll keep coming back until someone stops them permanently. Captain Song of the stealth frigate Phantom brought disturbing news from deep space patrols. Admiral, we're detecting reality distortions at the galaxy's edge. Space itself is starting to break down in areas where the Devourer's influence is strongest. If they reach the core worlds, they could unravel the fabric of existence throughout this entire region of the universe. The revelation changed everything. Humanity had thought the defeat of the Veilthan Empire marked the end of their trials. Instead, it was only the beginning. They had been chosen not just to inherit advanced technology, but to stand guard against forces that threatened all life in the universe, Captain. Han called a meeting of all Earth Defense Force commanders aboard the Blackstar. As they gathered in the ship's conference room, which existed in dimensions that made normal geometry irrelevant, he shared what the ancient knowledge had shown him. The builders of this technology fought the Devourers for millions of years, he explained, his voice carrying harmonics from other realities. They won every battle, but could never win the war. The enemy always returned, always found new ways to threaten existence itself. Finally, the builders realized that the only way to truly defeat the Devourers was to become something beyond their reach, so they abandoned the physical universe. Asked Admiral Yoon, not abandoned, transcended, but they knew others would have to take their place as guardians. That's why they left the artifacts. That's why the technology only activates for species facing extinction. They needed to find beings willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. General Taesung Lee, still commanding ground forces despite the cosmic scale of the new threat, asked the question everyone was thinking. Are we ready for this? Can humanity really stand against forces that defeated beings who were like gods compared to us? Captain Han smiled. Though the expression looked strange on features that had been changed by contact with ancient consciousness, we're not the same species that first found those artifacts. The neural interface has shown me what we're becoming. Each battle, each choice to protect others rather than ourselves, transforms us. We're evolving into something the builders hoped we could become. Engineer Kim, monitoring the ship's systems, reported that the Blackstar itself was changing. Captain, the technology is growing beyond its original specifications. It's adapting, learning, becoming more powerful with each passing day. It's as if the ship is alive and getting ready for the fight of its existence. As the crew of the Blackstar prepared for a war that would determine the fate of all reality, signals began arriving from across the galaxy. Species that had lived in isolation for millennia were emerging from hidden worlds, bringing weapons and knowledge that had been saved for the day when the greatest threat returned. The galaxy is uniting, reported Communications Officer Shin. Everyone understands what's at stake. This isn't about empire or conquest anymore. This is about survival on a cosmic scale. Captain Han walked to the observation deck where he could see stars that seemed brighter than before. Got as if the universe itself was preparing for battle. Through the neural interface, he could feel the approach of enemies that existed in dimensions where logic meant nothing, and destruction was a form of twisted creation. The builders were right to hope, he said to the empty space around him. Knowing that his words would be heard by consciousness that spanned galaxies, humanity is ready to inherit the universe. We've learned to fight not for ourselves, but for the right of existence itself to continue, as the USS Blackstar set course for the Galactic Rim, where reality was beginning to fray. Captain Han understood that the defeat of the Veilthan Empire had been just the first movement in a symphony of conflict that would echo across dimensions. Humanity had proven itself worthy of cosmic responsibility. Now they would discover if they were strong enough to fulfill it. The real war was about to